Welcome back to another Puck Ponders. I'm your host, Puck, and today I'm here to talk about video games and stuff that hopefully won't cripple you with depression like everything that's been going on in media recently. Yeah. That's what we're here for.
Is that a subscription?
Now, today I want to talk about something a little different. I want to talk about a title that is a retelling of a classic story, Journey to the West, the old Chinese one. Now, this title was developed by Ninja Theory based out of the UK and published by Namco Bandai and released in 2010 originally. The title was then later re-released in 2013 on Steam, which is the version of the game that I played. The title in question is Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. Now, the overall gameplay loop can be broken down into three major sections. You have the combat, puzzle sections, and the platforming sections. Now, each of these sections do have overlap with one another, which is very nice and pleasant. Now, the combat of the game can be broken into two major sections. You have the melee combat and the range combat. Now, the melee combat's nice, chunky, meaty, but it's extremely simplified where you have light attacks and heavy attacks. You can also occasionally counter after you unlock the ability to, and you can evade attacks. The combat is, again, not very depth. It's very simple combos. It's honestly like an extremely simplified version of the Arkham games, which are honestly already very simplified as combat goes. Now, the range combat, on the other hand, is even worse. It's very floaty. The attacks don't feel like they have any impact, quite honestly, but it's necessary to get through the game, as the second that you start upgrading your ranged attacks through the XP system, you're going to be able to one-shot any enemy that you come across, and you can stun waves of them. And it honestly trivializes any of the challenge in the game up to a point after you get those upgrades. Now, something to note with the platforming and puzzle sections of the game is, honestly, around this time, it was very thought of as a good idea to throw these sections into games to break up the pace of gameplay, to separate you from combat, which honestly it does that job very well. But the problem with the platforming is it's even more simplified than the combat, as it uses context-sensitive button presses to just go forward. You don't even really have true control of jumping, which honestly is a really big problem. I was coming into this and expecting the platforming to feel more like a Jak and Daxter, and instead I got an Assassin's Creed or an Uncharted, as when you're platforming, you just jump to the glowy thing. Now, that's not completely a problem, as the animations are slick and it feels good, and when you're in the moment, it doesn't really register in your brain that you're not doing anything and you're just watching a film. But in the slower sections, it definitely clicks in your head. I'm just holding forward and pushing A. Now, the basic premise of the game is you are playing as Monkey, aka Wukong, and you are escaping off of a slaver ship at the beginning of the game with a young lady by the name of Trip, who, after you get off this ship, then puts on a slaver headband, so if she dies, you die as well, and if you break her commands, she can kill you whenever. So it's kind of like marriage in a way. You're strapped to her hip, and you're just kind of along for the ride. Whatever she demands, you gotta do. Now, normally in regards to music, I would spend a decent amount of time breaking down the tracks, naming a couple standout tracks. This isn't a title in which I really feel the need to do that. This is, OST's passable at best, and I don't even feel the need to use the game's music in this video. That's how I feel about it. Now, the thing that I think this title does best is its cinematography and its art style and art direction, just overall, just the art in general. Now, as this game has aged with time, the textures have fallen off in quality a great amount. The game's not the prettiest looking from that perspective, but if I had to call a game Vista porn outside of The Witcher 3, my goodness, this game has so many sights to see. And show them! Oh, holy, wait a moment. That is a fucking view. Oh, hey.
Alright. So, that right there. Holy shit. So, you can tell, this is an older game, easily. Graphical fidelity, not the highest anymore. But I imagine, like, if you saw this shit back when the game came out, almost 10 years ago, this right here, this is what Ninja Theory made their money on. Holy shit, dude. Holy moly. Holy. Look at that. Just vista after vista. If they do this the whole fucking game, holy moly. I have genuinely not felt like this type of astoundment looking at shit like this outside of when I was a kid and I was playing Jack 2 and there was the Ancient Ruin Zone, which always just blew my mind every time I had to go through it. Oh man, just look at that. Look at that.
Now, something that I have not talked about yet is the characters as a whole. In this title, you have 3 primary characters, and I've already named off 2 of those, which are Trip and Monkey, who have a little bit of a romancy thing going on towards the end of the title, and then there's the extremely cartoony Pigsy. Pigsy's an endearing character in his own right, even if half the time it feels like he's trying to kill you and you're questioning if he's actually with you, but that's besides the point. So, in this title, there is another 4th unnamed character. Now, this could be debated, as it could be considered a gameplay element as well, but I feel like it's much more of a character. This is a title that is, for the most part, a whole game that is an escort mission, and I believe that escort mission is a character, as you are playing Monkey, and you are escorting Trip from beginning to end. You have to protect her, you have to get her from point A to point B, and honestly, it's one of the best escort missions I've ever played, and arguably the best, because it doesn't look at Trip and treat her as some dumb character who's not useful. You have to actively use her help, especially before you get upgrades, to make it through the platforming sections or even combat sections of the game. She actually feels like a useful part of the team, and this isn't in the same vein as, let's say, Bioshock Infinite with Elizabeth, where she's there, she can't take damage, and she occasionally throws out HP or ammo or whatever. She actively is involved in the gameplay experience by throwing out decoys, hacking things. Yes, you end up protecting her a lot of the time, but it never feels like she's a waste of your time. Now, I have had a whole lot of criticisms for this title as a whole throughout this process. That's not to say it's not a good game, though. It very much is. If I had to give this game a score on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's a solid 7. It's still a really, really good game, especially due to the art direction and cinematic direction. My issues with this title stem from the oversimplification of the platforming and combat, and even the combat feels satisfying because of that cinematic direction. The way that it cuts to Monkey's close in and just cutting things in half with his staff towards the end of combat has a really visceral, meaty feel to it, which really does lend to the westernization feel of this classic story. I definitely think this is a title you should pick up. Now, this is the ever-evolving hair color of Puck telling you, give it a go, especially seeing as how it's on sale a whole lot, especially on Steam. Where'd you go? You want to quit? Huh? Daddy's trying to record here. Yeah. Please and thank you. Dogs can't live with them, can't live without them.